I don't know what is the best way to talk about this, but at the same time, I think it's a subject that needs to be talked about because today, in case, well, honestly, I don't know how you wouldn't be able to know about something like this, but today the Capitol building was just stormed by a mob that was led by Trump supporters, and they decided to rally on the 6th, and it was in response to the House and the and Congress counting up the Electoral College ballots, and obviously everybody knows that the votes went to Biden, but the Trump supporters clearly were not going to take that, and so they just on January 6th, I actually did know about this rally going on before because my stepmother and my father were talking about going to that rally. And my stepmother conveniently was she was talking about how she wanted to be a part of history by joining that rally, and amazing how much this is more than likely going to be remembered in history. And I really don't know how this couldn't possibly be recorded, so yeah, she would have gotten her wish. I don't know if she went or not, but she was definitely eager to try and get my dad to buy some boarding passes so that they could go to that rally. And I don't know if she went or not, but if she did, well, I hope she got her wish. And if she didn't, well, I'm sure either way she would have wanted to be there because this is definitely something she would have been more excited about. And yes, she is one fucked up, crazy, absolutely insane Trump supporter. And yeah, that's basically just it's just incredibly shocking just to see how far things have gone, really. I mean, I'm not surprised, but at the same time, it's also like, how did we let this happen? I don't know. It's just. I find it hilarious in some sense that, based on my visit back when I was with my stepmother and my dad, and basically, it was mostly just a political lecture whenever she was around, and it was just lecturing me while I just sat there and sat in silence, because I knew how it was going to go down. Because if I did argue politically, it only would have been just a shouting match, and I just didn't want to deal with it. It would have been exhausting. It would have just been leading to so many awful things, and I and there was this very funny question that she asked me. Not necessarily funny, but the response to it was funny. And it was a question about what is a democracy and what is a republic. And I said a republic was the use of representatives to represent the voice of the people, which is true. And then she asked what I thought a democracy was. And I'm going to point this out early because this is where I find it to be funny. I use the definition that my dad actually gave to me when I was a child, when I was younger. And he told me that democracy was one man, one vote when I asked what a democracy was, because at the time I think there was some movie that was called Vote, and it was about some guy whose vote was going to make an election or something like that. I don't know if it was very well known. I just remember there was a movie about that, and that was why I asked the question. Um, and he told me that it was the idea that every person gets a vote, basically the idea one man, one vote. Or and so that's what I gave as a definition: one man, one vote. And my stepmother was like, no, I don't know where you got that definition, but it is not what a democracy is. And I thought in my mind, well, then I guess you kind of need to tell my dad that because he was the one that gave me that definition in the first place. I mean, he doesn't believe that anymore. He believes that it basically their answer was mob rule, that the mob gets to decide regardless of the people's will or whatever. I don't know what their actual definition was, but it definitely involved mob rule. And and it's funny because that's literally what's happening right now. Their definition of what they had about democracy is exactly what's happening right now And it's exactly happening on their side. They are the ones using the mob to try and control the government the way they want to because they didn't like the result of what happened in the election. That's literally what they're doing. They're literally using a mob, and I haven't heard anything from what my stepmom is thinking about this, nor do I want to, as interested as I am to hear what hypocritical response she would, or excuse she would want to come up with. It's really something I don't really have the patience to deal with, or there is just no extent to how much I am willing to put up with her bullshit. Or my dad's bullshit. I have recently just been getting an influx of political-based emails of like, this is how your election is going to be affected if Trump doesn't win. I'm like, you're affecting my vote right now. Your side is literally affecting my vote by trying to force it to work for Trump instead of working for the way that the election actually went. You lost, okay? Why is it that you think you're the ones being cheated when you are literally the ones doing the cheating? Right now. And before. Your side was the one burning the ballots. Your side was the one that was putting up the fake ballot boxes. Your side was the one that was trying to devalue the vote. And yet you're the ones talking to me about how your side is the one that is going to make my vote matter. And I'm going to admit, yes, I voted for Biden. Of course because he was the better choice than Donald Trump, and because I knew that, well, I mean, there was no other option, really. That's basically what most people voted for with Biden. Nobody really liked him. He was only less worse than Trump, was the main reason as to why a lot of votes went for Biden. And obviously that was the one thing that, my dad and his wife just did not understand, is that how can so many people vote for Biden when most people don't even like him? And, of course, we're all thinking, well, it's because a lot of people don't like Trump. They do not like Biden, but they hate Trump more than they hate Biden. And I just really needed to air this whole thing out because of what's going on. And it's even more concerning at the fact of how the police response to this hostile takeover of the Capitol is going. So far, only one person has been shot, but at the same time, we've been seeing the Black Lives Matter protests. And have things gone more drastic? Have things become more tense with the protests? Yes. But who was the one that was starting the drastic measures? Was it the protesters or was it the police? The answer to that question was actually the police. They were the ones that started shooting rubber bullets. They were the ones using tear gas, pepper spraying everybody, and also harassing disabled activists who were marching with the Black Lives Matter protesters. Am I saying that every Black Lives Matter member has been completely innocent? No, not necessarily. But what I am saying that for a majority of the time, the Black Lives Matter protests have been peaceful. 93% of them have been peaceful, and a majority of the time where it did turn to violence, it was because the police were the ones escalating the situation, not the protesters. Whether it be the police pretending to be protesters, or whether it was the police starting by shooting rubber bullets and throwing tear gas at protesters or at journalists, and knocking people off of their wheelchairs, and basically situations like that. And I live in Portland, and yes, things have gotten more tense here. But at the same time, that was also a problem that could have easily been dealt with. Just hold the cops accountable. That's it. They committed a crime. They should not be held above the law. Simple solution. But, for some reason, it has to be made into this difficult choice where, do we actually promote justice? Do we actually hold the officers who committed a crime accountable? Or do we just do nothing about it and just pretend like it didn't even happen in the first place? And it's disappointing what we decided to do. We decided to let people's crimes we decided to let people get away with crimes, and today was absolutely no different. there was a literal mob making a coup against the Capitol, against Congress, against the vote. And so far, nothing has been done about it. No arrests have been made. Nobody has been shot with rubber bullets. Nobody has been hit with tear gas. I mean, I would not want the regular response to be tear gas and rubber bullets, but the difference between how the police have responded to the Black Lives Matter protests and how they're responding to the Maga marches, which have all involved property damage, which have all involved violence, which have all involved some sort of damage against property and against civilians, and have always involved in trying to form a coup against the government and against the vote. And the fact that the response between the two are so different, where the Black Lives Matter people are just asking for accountability to be held for law enforcement officers that broke the law, and the MAGA marchers, who are simply just trying to take away the vote from people who have legitimately voted through legitimate means. And they have their excuses, but they've all been debunked. And the Supreme Court and all the different regional courts have already said, no, you have brought your evidence, and it has been debunked. The votes are legitimate. The election results are legitimate. You can't keep continuing to pretend like there's something going on, and we also have the voice recording of Donald Trump trying to have the Georgia secretary count only his votes instead of Biden. And I'm supposed to believe my dad and his wife when they say that the Democrats are the ones committing election fraud, when the Trump supporters are the ones literally committing election fraud, when they are the ones literally making a coup. I'm supposed to find them to be the more reasonable side when they're the ones causing the destruction and chaos that they are doing right now. I really had to let this out because I was just appalled, and I had to say something about this. I couldn't go without saying something about this, but it was needed. That I needed to say something about this. And if you have your opinions, that's fine. People have different opinions, and but I also have my opinions, and I have my reasons for believing what I say. I have listened to what has been going on. I have been paying attention to what has been going on, and I'm sorry, but this is a legitimate and 100% coup, and I can only think of just how embarrassed I am that I live in this country, in all of its hypocrisy, and that to this day it continues on a path of hypocrisy. To be the land of the free, where free speech matters, and at the same time, I'm seeing people's votes being devalued by the people who say that their votes are being devalued when their votes were just as legitimate. And yet they're trying to devalue the vote because it just so happened to not work their way. Just because their guy didn't get into office again, because their guy wasn't reelected. And that's basically all I have to say. I'm just going to continue rambling if I go on, but I was able to let everything out, so with that being said, I'm just going to end the video, so have a good rest of the day, and we'll just see what comes from it, I suppose. Hopefully it doesn't go too horribly, but so far 2021 is kind of off to a bad start, and we can only see what happens from here.